All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining me. I apologize today. I am a little bit sniffly. My allergies are acting up on me, so it doesn't happen very often, but every now and then. So bear with me. Hopefully, it doesn't bother anybody too much. But we'll go ahead and start taking some questions. Let me scroll down here. Looks like we already got some posted on here. Might be sneezing a few times, so again, I do apologize. So Tim F says, I struggle with keeping my nose behind the ball and holding my posture all the way through to the release point. Is there anything you can add to the TSG system that might help me find the answer? So that's going to be in the stable fluid spine course, and that's working on the drill, the nose behind the ball drill. So mainly what you're doing, what you want to make sure you're doing, and what you're talking about is if you're not familiar with what that drill is, and maybe you are and you're just looking for help with the drill, but for those of you that aren't familiar with the drill, basically what you're doing, and this is from the Stable Fluid Spine course on the website, the first piece of the Toss Golf system, is you're taking a club or alignment stick, whatever it might be, you're placing it on the ground, and then you'll basically straddle that. So I don't know if you can see that very well, but basically you'll straddle that in your stance. So that's right in the center of my stance here. And I'm doing repetitions where I'm going up to the top. I'm staying behind the stick. I don't want to move way off, but I'm staying behind the stick as I'm going up to the top. And sorry, I got a wall here, so I can't go all the way up to the top. And then as I'm coming down, I'm staying behind that as I'm coming here. Now, if you're getting ahead of that, that means that you're sliding your hips or your compression line, which is another piece of the Tough Golf system, is leaning forward. That may be what's going on there. So what you need to feel is like the ground is pushing back up into you this way. Because as you are pushing and going this way, if you're sliding, you're not rotating. So in order to stay in your posture and to not slide, you need to feel like the ground is pushing back up into you and rotating your body here. Otherwise, you're just going to slide and move forward. So feel like the ground is pushing back up into you. In fact, it's going to be kind of pushing back up into you in this direction. And that's going to help you push that hip back and out of the way so that you can rotate that body open and come through into the finish. Now, if you're sliding, you're trying to work on this, if you're trying to work on this in your full swing, full speed, you need to stop and do the pausing reps. Be able to do it in a practice swing first. Now, one other thing that could be happening that's causing you to slide is you may be coming down steep in transition. What I mean by that is if you look in the downswing, you pause the swing when the lead arm is parallel to the ground. If that club is pointing inside the golf ball, the butt end of the club is pointing inside the golf ball, you're coming down steep. So we need to get that shallowed out. What happens is when you come down steep, you stand up and slide to get to the golf ball. So that might be what's going on with you is you're coming down steep and then sliding and your body's moving ahead, because if you don't slide forward and you release that club early and get that proper release point, or get that improper release point, which would be releasing early, then what's happening is you're adding off, you're flipping from standing up, because you have to stand up to get that club to come back on the plane. So if I'm steep, I got to stand up because watch, if I stand up, it raises the handle. When the handle raises, the head drops. So that's likely what's going on there. It's hard to say exactly without seeing your swing, but I would look at those things on camera. If you are standing up, look at if you have steepness in the swing, and then see what's going on there. It could also be that you're pushing through with the hands. So instead of releasing this club out in front, you're used to squaring the face by really pushing through with that trail hand. And if you push through with the trail hand, you're gonna stand up. Otherwise, you're just gonna stick it right in the ground behind the golf ball. So you gotta get some lag and let this club release out in front, and that's going to help you to get into those positions. So it's a matter of looking what's on video, looking what's on camera there, and seeing what's going on, and then addressing those issues, or at least understanding that, okay, until I get to that point, I'm going to have trouble keeping this position. So everything that you do is a compensation to hit a good shot. So if you don't have good swing mechanics, you're going to be making, in order for you to hit a good shot, you're going to be making some sort of compensation. So what that means is if I'm coming down steep, if I don't compensate and stand up so that the club comes down on plane, my other alternative is to stick this club right in the ground, right behind the ball. Because if I continue down like this, I'm just going to stick this right in the ground behind the ball. Or what most people do, if they're not standing up to get the club shallowed out, is they're coming over the top. So instead of here, they'll come over the top like that, and then that's going to create a huge slice. So your body is just reacting to try to hit a good shot. So you have to counteract that by getting in the right positions and learning that. And it takes doing the slow motion, pausing, key checkpoints, doing those slow motion reps, then doing slow fluid reps, then doing faster and faster reps until you're at full speed and everything looks good on camera. You're going through the test like we talked about, like we do in the Stable Fluid Spine course. You're going through those tests, or any of the courses on the website where we're talking, thousands of reps here. It takes time and repetition to be able to do that. So it sounds like to me you're doing some things in the swing there that you're compensating for, like coming down steep, flipping with the hands, and those need to be addressed with the move, working through the move a little bit and the spine together a little bit. Or you're just kind of rushing through the course and not taking your time and doing the pausing reps and making sure that you're making it second nature. You may be able to get into positions, fairly early on, but in order for those to be ingrained and to make them second nature to where you're comfortable with them, it takes thousands of reps. So understand that whenever you're working through them. And I recommend, you don't have to go to the driving range to do these repetitions. You can do them at home. As long as you have some space or something like that to swing a club or to move around, you can do these at home for sure. All right. So again, I apologize. I'm a little bit sniffly today. All right. So Eric F says, I plan to spend some time in golf simulator next month. As about a 16 handicapper, what should I try to achieve as far as spin rate, club head speed, launch angle, etc.? How can I best spend this time? So I wouldn't be worried about your spin rate so much right now. I'd be worried about where you're hitting it solid. So that just basically means where you're striking on the face. The simulator is not going to tell you that. But what you can do is you can use foot powder spray, or you can use the dot method, which is fairly easy to do. All you do is, if you have your balls in the, you got the balls in the simulator there, just take one of the balls and bring like a dry erase or washable marker with you, and just put a heavy dot on the golf ball. So basically it would look like that, just like a heavy dot on the golf ball. You can use a Sharpie, but it's just a little bit harder to get off the ball if you do that. And when you set up to hit the ball, just have this dot to where it's angled down to where it'll strike on the face whenever you hit it. So if you're using a wedge, you're going to want to angle it down a little bit more. If you're hitting a driver, you won't necessarily need to angle it down very much because there's not that much loft on a driver. So then that will rub off on the face and tell you where you're striking it on the face. Get your strike where it's more in the center of the face first. That's the first thing that you would want to be doing when you're in the simulator. Get to where you can control that. So if you hit some balls and you're finding, you're trying to hit in the center of the face, but a lot of these strikes are out here on the toe, then what you would want to do is adjust your feel to hit on the heel. Intentionally try to hit the ball on the heel, and that will most likely move the strike closer to the center. And you keep doing that until you actually start hitting it off the heel. So that's what I would recommend doing for sure. And if you still hit it on the toe, then exaggerate it even more. Try to hit it off the hosel. Try to miss it from the outside. Just exaggerate it as much as you need to get that in the center of the face. And don't stop doing that until your feel actually becomes real. At that point, after you've done maybe a couple of those in a row, then at that point you could consider yourself a little bit calibrated, and you can ease off of the feeling a little bit. Maybe not feel like, if you needed to feel like you were hitting it off the hosel to get it to be more in the center of the face, and you actually start hitting it off the hosel, then maybe just feel like you're hitting it on the heel. And if you start hitting it on the heel, then actually try to hit it in the center of the face. And more than likely, now you're essentially calibrated. So that's the first thing that I would do. The thing after that I would do is I would fix my ball flight, because once you're able to get that ball in the center of the face, it basically boils down to face and path. So face meaning the direction the club face is pointing, and path meaning the direction the club is moving as it's coming through impact. So in to out, out to in, that's in reference to club path. So if the ball is going to start mostly in the direction of the club face. So I'd be fixing the club face first, seeing if it's not starting straight, then that's a club face issue, right? And if you are starting straight and you're hitting it with huge curvature and thing like that, and you're hitting it in the center of the face, that's a path issue. So that's what I'd be looking at, working on. If you're getting the ball to start right or left, I'd be working on trying to exaggerate doing the opposite. So you do the same thing as you did with the strike location. If you are hitting it, leaving the face open, you're right-handed, everything's starting to the right, then you're going to need to feel like you're closing that face more. Sorry, I feel a sneeze coming on. Ugh. Allergies are killing me today. Sorry about that, guys. So what that would entail is in the downswing, I try to feel like you're kind of hooding the club. So you're doing this with your wrist. That's going to close the face. So doing this with your wrist. I thought I was going to sneeze. Sorry. Doing this with your wrist, with your left wrist, your lead wrist, be bowing the lead wrist. That's wrist flexion. That's going to close the face. So feel like you're doing that in the downswing. Feel like you're hitting the outside part of the golf ball. Feel like as you're coming through contact that your trail hand here is pointing down toward the ground. Because if you're doing that, then that's going to get that club face closed because the hands are going to be rolling over and closing that face. So all of those things are going to help you to close the face. If you overdo it, then just ease off of the feeling a little bit. Don't go to the extreme. Maybe not feel like your hands coming down pointing to the ground. Maybe just feel like it's pointing kind of more over that way or behind you or down and behind you. Adjust your feel to get the desired result that you need. Once you get your face fixed, you get the ball starting straight, then work on your path if there's curvature going on. Now, if you're hitting it in the center of the face, your path is straight, and when you're trying to make it straight and your face is straight, when you're trying to make it straight, then at that point, you would want to work on some speed for sure. Now, you can work on speed before that. If everything's reasonable, nothing's way out of the center of the face, nothing is, way off the map, then definitely work on some club head speed. You're going to want to work through the 20-minute distance fixed course that's on the website. And you can do that at the simulator, get your club head speed there. But that'd be the main thing. If the simulator is able to give you face and path, usually they're not. Simulators are usually just reading what the ball is doing. But you can base, what you're seeing, what's happening with the ball on what's happening with the club. If you understand some ball flight laws. So number one, ball is going to start mostly in the direction of the club face. Number two, the ball is going to curve away from the club path. The bigger the difference between your face and your path, the more curvature you're going to have on the ball. And the closer they are together, the less curvature you're going to have on the ball. And that's all assuming center face contact. If you hit it on the toe, it's going to tend to start a little bit more to the right because the face is going to open. And then it's going to curve to the left a little bit more to the left than it normally would, or it may make it go straight. So if you hit a ball with a slice swing, you hit it off the toe, it's possible that it could just go dead straight. So that's why it's important to get your strike location right. If you hit the ball with a slice swing and you hit it so far off the toe that the face opens a ton, then it will actually end up being a push slice. So there's lots of things that can happen and make things very, very frustrating if you don't get that strike in the center of the face. I actually have a buddy that I play with quite often that he really, really struggles with toe strikes, hitting on the toe. And it's very difficult for him. He gets really, really frustrated when we're going out and playing because he just has trouble hitting it off the toe so much. And I try to tell him, you got to focus on hitting that ball on the hosel. And whenever he does, he actually hits pretty good golf shots. Like we played yesterday, and we were on, I think it was a par 5. He had an eagle putt. He was on a par 5. He hit it 300 plus down the middle of the fairway. He was even slightly off the toe. It wasn't a ton off the toe, but it was maybe like a quarter inch, half inch off the toe to strike. But what he's been hitting it out here, like way out here on the toe. And it's very frustrating because it's either going to end up for him, it hits it so far off the toe that the face opens so much that there's no gear effect that can really happen because the face is so open and the ball just shoots off to the right, ends up kind of being a push slice. And then he hits it so far or if he hits it not so far off the toe, so it's pretty far off the toe, but not so much that the face gets so far open, it'll actually end up hooking on him and he'll hit it left. He'll just hit this ball that it just dives left big time. So it's really, really frustrating. You gotta imagine it's either big old block slice out to the right or snap hook left out of bounds. So if you don't get that strike worked out, it's gonna be the most difficult thing. So if your strike isn't good, you're a 16 handicapper, so I would imagine your strike is decent. You probably have the occasional big time heel or big time toe shot, but make sure I would try to get that to be to where most of the time you're hitting it pretty much in the center of the face. We're not always going to hit it. I hit balls off the toe or off the heel all the time. In fact, my miss right now is a thin heel shot. So we all hit these shots, but that's really face hitting at strike location is really king as far as it comes to controlling your ball flight. Now, club head speed is very, very important. You're not going to hit it very far unless you hit it with some club head speed. You can hit it in the center of the face all you want, but if you're swinging 70 miles per hour, the ball's not going to go anywhere. So you got to get that strike worked out, get your club head speed up, face and path worked out. Those are really the things that I'd be looking at, especially if you're going to a simulator to be able to work out. So that's what I'd recommend doing. Work through the 20-minute distance fix course to raise up your club head speed, increase your range of motion through that course, improve your sequencing through the course, do the neural adaptation part, which you'll learn about in the course. Do all that as you're working through it, and you'll get a lot out of those simulator sessions for sure. All right, so I think I made it through a question without almost having to sneeze, so that's progress. All right, so Abdullah A says, on the downswing, which arm should dominate the swing, the lead or tail arm, and why? So it's definitely going to be more the lead arm. Both arms are going to be definitely doing stuff, especially your trail arm in the beginning of the downswing. Now, we don't want to be that trail arm coming out and doing that action. That's not what we want. But it's going to be putting some force into the handle here in the beginning of the swing. So imagine if I'm a baseball pitcher, right? If I'm a baseball pitcher with my trail hand, which would be my dominant hand here, if I'm a right-handed pitcher, I'm back here and I'm coming here and then I'm releasing it like that, right? The same thing that we want in the golf swing. We want to be coming down here and then releasing it like that. We don't want to be going like this and releasing out that way, which is what a lot of people do when they get that right arm dominant going. So you want to feel almost like you're a pitcher and you're getting that going. And then that you're going to be using a lot of your lead hand here more to pull the club through, and you're going to be feeling a lot of pressure, most of the pressure that you're putting into the grip with your hands in the lead fingers here. So pinky, ring, and middle finger, you're going to be putting a lot of pressure into that grip and pushing through there. Part of the reason why you want to be doing that is because it's the most efficient and quickest, fastest way to get club head speed. Technically, your trail hand cannot keep up if you have proper swing mechanics. So the reason for that is if you think about the wings of a fan blade, right? And if this is the center of the rotation, right? This part right here, the edge of the fan blade, is moving faster than this part right here. So if that is true, then this part is moving slower than this part. So if you're swinging your lead hand as fast as you possibly can coming through, then your trail hand cannot keep up because this part is moving faster than this part. So that's part of the reason why you want to be leading with the left hand, why you want to feel like you're kind of releasing and letting go with the trail hand. So that's kind of the feeling that you want to have. Almost imagine you're a baseball pitcher and you're back here and you are almost throwing like a sidearm pitch and you're getting that to release out here. Now, a lot of people, they get this feeling, but they release it here. I want you to feel like you're releasing it out there at the target. This is part of the reason why this game is tough is because it's a side-on game, right? So when we're throwing a baseball, it's more intuitive to release everything out that way toward the target where we're going to. But the problem is with golf is that the target that we're hitting is down here, but we're trying to hit it at the target that's out there. We want to release everything to the target out there, not at the golf ball. So we want to feel like we're releasing through that way. And that, if you have that feeling like you're releasing at the target instead of at the golf ball, it's going to help you to keep that right hand out of it a little bit, or that trail hand, so that it's not pushing through and taking over and slowing you down. Not to mention is that when you use that trail hand, the other thing that happens is you will release the club early, burning up all your speed out here. So if I'm creating lag and using my lead hand, and I'm like a baseball pitcher, and I'm coming through, I have this lag, and now I'm whipping it through contact, that's going to be a lot faster than if I'm using my right hand here and I'm pushing the club through and then scooping it through contact. So the reason why it's faster is because if you imagine, if I'm right here, this is a typical position that you see with a tour player. When the hands are coming down, they're in front of the trail thigh. They're in front of the trail thigh there, and the club's parallel to the ground. That's a typical position that you're going to see. Now, from this point to contact, my hands are only going to move maybe about a foot, not even. So now I'm at this point. So my club head has probably moved 4 feet, but my hands have only moved 1 foot. Whereas if you're casting and you're in this position, you're with that hands in front of the trail thigh position, that club's probably going to be in this area. So now my hands are going to move from here to in front of my trail thigh, but my club is only going to move about 2 feet. So mathematically, if you think about it, if over the same amount of time, a club moves a further distance, then it has to move faster, right? So if you imagine if you're driving from, let's say, St. Louis to, or let's say that you're driving from, I'm trying to think of a place that everybody would know. So imagine you're here in Florida, right? And I'm trying to drive to Tallahassee from Miami, right? That would be a long distance. But if I took the same amount of time to drive from Miami to Orlando, I would drive a lot slower. So that's kind of what's happening here, is that if my hands are moving the same amount of distance to go from here to here, but my club head goes from there to there instead of there to there, that club head has to move a lot faster from that longer distance in order to get there in the same amount of time. So that's basically, in a nutshell, that was a lot of reasons why you want to be leading more, probably with that lead hand as you're coming through contact. But in the beginning of the swing, you're really using both, and you're feeling like that trail hand is really letting go. But it's less left hand in the beginning, more trail hand letting go, but then more left hand in the follow through. Clay actually has a great video on the website that's available to all access members, where you can. And sorry, I'm wiping away my nose because my nose is running a little bit. But if you go to the vault section, actually, if you just search it, it'd be better. Just search the word pressure, one word, pressure, and you'll find the video that I'm talking about. It's called How Much Pressure Should You Have in the Swing in Crazy Detail. And Clay kind of talks about all those things that I talked about there. But those are all really good reasons why you probably want to use more of your lead side. It's probably the best feeling for most people. But again, it's all about feelings. What you feel is happening may not be the reality of what's happening. So if you're seeing a lot of casting in your swing and that's what feels natural to you, then you may need to feel like you're not using your trail hand at all. And what will likely happen is you'll use it a little bit, but you'll use more of your lead hand, which is what you want to do. All right. So Brian C says, I have been working on eliminating my slice with my driver. When you are rotating your hands over the ball at impact to attempt a hook, are you then releasing your lag and reaching your full extension earlier than 4 feet instead of impact position? No, with any shot, whether you're hitting a draw, fade, straight shot, you always want to be releasing the club out in front. So you don't want to be squaring the face by releasing the club. That's what a flip is. So if I'm coming into contact, there's gonna be a little bit of releasing that squares the face, but it's not going to be very much. That club's going to be releasing out in here no matter what. That's what you want. So if you're releasing the club right here to square the face or to get that club face closed to stop hooking, you're going to flip and you're going to release early, and it's not going to be a very efficient strike. You're going to add loft to it. It's going to go super high. You're going to have trouble being consistent because the club's coming in way too shallow with the golf ball. Probably going to hit a lot of chunks and thins and tops and things like that. So what we want to do is we want to be turning this handle to square the club face. And that's more in what the wrist is. Instead of doing this with the wrist, so if you watch here, this is me going like that with the wrist. You want to feel like you're actually turning this handle with the lead hand. So with my lead hand, instead of breaking down and cupping, I'm actually going to turn it the other way, and that's going to square the face. So if you watch, that would be square club face, closing club face. Watch what I'm doing with my trail wrist. I'm bowing it. This is wrist flexion. I'm bending it to where my palm is pointing down toward my elbow here. That's closing the club face. So that's really what you want to be doing. You want to be coming in and turning that handle by doing that. So trail wrist is bending back like that. You can see that's closing the face. And I'm still coming in. I have forward shaftling square club face. Now I'm releasing it out here and then coming out into the full finish. What you're talking about doing is coming in and squaring it by standing up and doing that at contact. So if you see here, my trail wrist is pushing through. It's cupping, or sorry, it's pretty flat here at contact. It's doing the opposite of what I was doing before. And now my lead wrist is cupping. It's breaking down. When you do this, you're probably going to end up with chicken wings. You're going to have all kinds of issues when you do that. So you want to feel like when you're closing that face down, is that you are turning this handle down. You're feeling like you're hooding that face as you're coming down, and that's going to get you to where you can rotate into contact and get that club to release out in front. A great way to fix your slice is actually not only to go through the Never Slice Again course, but the move course, because the move is going to get you to where you're getting this club shallowed out so that you can swing from the inside, and then also turning that handle down in the downswing to get that squared up position that we're talking about. All the drills in the move course are to help with that. So to get to the move course, if you want to work on that as another kind of angle to work on your slice issue, all you have to do is go to the home page by clicking the house icon at the top of the page. When you get to the home page, scroll down and you'll see a list of all the courses on the website. Scroll down, you'll see the move course. Get started on that, shallowing out the club and squaring the face earlier. All right. Let me move on to the next question here. So Carl D says, I find that when I work on shallowing the club at the top, I tend to drop my right shoulder and lose my spine angle rather than just using my arms and wrists. My mind doesn't seem to separate how those feel. Any suggestions? What I recommend is actually you got to take it slow. You got to take it slow, pausing at key checkpoints throughout the swing. I think a lot of people, and this is human nature, is we want everything now, right? Especially in this day and age, right? Everything is now. We're getting it right now. And whenever we're working on our golf game and things like that, we have the same mentality. But unfortunately, there isn't a quick fix or I want it now, get it now type of thing for most issues in golf. Some issues there are pretty instant results, but the move is definitely not one of them. The move is really one of the tougher things to be able to get on the website as far as technique is concerned, because it's so far from what you're doing, what most amateurs are doing, that it's just so uncomfortable. So what we don't want to do, and what he's talking about here, is he's talking about when he's coming down, instead of shallowing out the club from getting the wrist movement, he's doing this action. So that's, if you look from this angle, he's coming down and to get this club shallowed out, he's going like that. Now that does, stepping on my clubs here, that does shallow the club, but not the way that we want to. That's just going to make you hit a cold chunk. If you go like that and shallow the club, you're just going to put that club right into the ground, right behind the golf ball. Or you're going to try and compensate by flipping it. It's going to be tough. So what you got to do is you got to feel it in the hands. Do it as much. I would do this drill all the time. I'd get it in 15 minutes a day. I would get a tennis racket and I would actually do the tennis racket drill. You can get one of these. You don't even have to do it with a tennis racket. I just like to do it with the tennis racket because it's easy to do indoors. But All you have to do is you can get this. You don't have to spend a lot of money on this. This is like less than $20 at Walmart or whatever. So if you get one of these, this can really help you to get that club shallowed out, get the feeling of that, not with doing this, but by actually doing this. So some feelings here to help you get this club shallowed out. One, focus on the elbow a little bit. Instead of focusing on doing that with everything, focus on that elbow coming into the body. Just really focus on that and that only, and see if that helps. Because if you watch, if I have my elbow out away from my body like this, I'll show you from this angle. If I have it out away from my body, I'm going to be coming over the top. So you see in this direction, out away from my body, I'm coming over the top. If I bring that into my body, look what happens to the shaft. Shallows out. If I keep everything the same, equal, I don't even have to do anything with my wrists. I just bring that in. Look what's happened to the shaft. It's nice and shallowed out. So that's one feeling I would focus on. The other feeling, I'd focus on the other elbow, because that's going to help you do the same thing. So if you imagine there's a laser pointing out of my elbow here, that being the tennis racket, if I'm shallow, or sorry, if I'm steep, right? So meaning if I have the shaft straight up and down like this, that laser coming out of my elbow is going to be pointing down toward the ground. So in order to get that to where it's not pointing down at the ground, I need to feel like the laser coming out of my elbow is pointing out that way toward a wall. So that, again, that one there, if I keep everything the same, I just get my trail elbow to be pointing. I rotate my arm to get it to where it's pointing like that. That's going to get it shallowed out. Another feeling that you can work on, which is my personal favorite, is turning the doorknob. So what that means is at the top, or as I'm coming down the transition, I'm having the feeling that I'm turning a doorknob to the right. So from your perspective, from the camera here, it looks like I'm turning to the left. But from my perspective, as the swinger of the club, it's turning to the right. So again, if I do that, that's going to shallow out club. You do that with both hands. You can work on it individually, or you can work on it with both hands. You can just think about it with the right hand, just think about it with the left hand. Change up, find the feeling that works best for you, and use that. The reason why you want to use a tennis racket, or the reason why it's helpful to use a tennis racket, is because I can clearly see where this is pointing, right? A shaft is perfectly round, right? I can't tell where the front part of the shaft is pointing when it's out in space. The club face, when it's at address, I can't really tell if it's at address with the club face. I can see the leading edge and tell that it's pointing at the target. But from when it gets out in space, it's a lot harder to tell. With this tennis racket, if you let this act as the face, as a visual for the club face, you can tell at all times where it's pointing. So getting this to where it's pointing up to the sky is the shallowing part. That's the first piece that you got to get going. So focus on the elbows, focus on the turning of the wrists, and really and also focus on keeping your spine stable, because you're wanting to do this to make it happen. Just focus on those and keeping your spine stable. Take it slow, exaggerate it, pause at that transition position. And then once you start getting more comfortable with it and understanding, taking mental notes of the positions your body is in when you're doing that, now let's up it to doing slow motion practice swings, fluid practice swings with no pauses. So nice fluid swings. So I'm going up to the top, and I'm going really, really slow here. I'm going up to the top. I'm shallowing it out. I'm feeling my elbows coming into my body. Again, we want to do a fluid swing. So I'm going up to the top, feeling it coming down, and then that's it right there. I'm coming all the way through. I don't have room in here to do it all the way to the full finish. But I'm going up to the top, feeling it shallow out. I'm coming all the way around into the full finish. I would do a bunch of those, get more comfortable with that. Once you start getting more comfortable at really slow speed, pick up the speed. Look at, once you start picking up the speed, spot check a few on video and see if you're actually doing what you think you're doing, and then adjust accordingly. So that's what you got to do. It takes time. It takes repetition. Work on this 15, 20 minutes a day. I'm sure you can find 15, 20 minutes a day. Ask yourself, do I want to be better today? If the answer is yes, work on this for 15, 20 minutes a day. I imagine the answer is always going to be yes. That's not very much time. You can always find the time. Wake up first thing in the morning, do it. Do it right before you go to bed. Do it while you're watching the news. Get 15, 20 minutes in. If you do it with the tennis racket, you can do it indoors. You don't have to go out to the range and take that big time commitment. I'd much rather you work on this for 15, 20 minutes a day than to practice for 4 hours one day a week. If you're constantly doing it, you're constantly reminding yourself. But if you do it one day a week, you just have that one chunk of practice session one day a week, you're having to relearn everything that you did last week and then build from there. If you're doing it every day, you are not having to relearn so much. You're getting right back into the swing of things, no pun intended, but you're going right back after. So that's what I recommend doing. And then have a few range sessions a week where you actually do try to go out and put this into practice. And don't expect for it to be perfect from the get-go or anywhere near what it should be. Don't expect it. But as you go through it and as you get more comfortable with it, you're going to see slight improvements along the way. You're going to see it starting to get a little bit more shallower, and it's going to become easier and easier. So go slow, pause, exaggerating, key checkpoints, focus on key movements, feelings as you're going through it, pick it up into fluid practice swings, get to where you're doing it faster and faster, spot check, make sure you're getting into the positions, adjust if needed, go faster and faster and faster, work on this 15, 20 minutes a day. And if you keep doing that, if you keep at it, you ask yourself every day, do I want to be better at golf today? And if the answer is yes, which I hope it is every single day, then go and do it. If it's no, then you need to reevaluate your goals and exactly what you want to do, because you realize that maybe this isn't worth it for me to get better. So I hope always the answer is yes, but definitely think about that every single time. All right. So I took an allergy pill right before we started. I think it's finally starting to kick in. Thank goodness. All right. So Jeff K says, I have an issue with a constant slice and have tried to compensate by turning my stance to the left. But most times when I do this, the ball will go straight. What may I be doing to cause this? So I'm assuming you just hit it straight. So the reason why you want to turn your stance, and I assume you mean you're not turning your stance this way. I assume you mean you're closing your stance. I'm not sure if that's what you mean or not. But the reason why you might want to close your stance to make it a little bit easier if you're struggling with a slice is it makes it easier to swing from the inside. So to fix a slice, the best way is to really just understand why you're slicing the ball. So what causes a slice? A slice is caused by one or two things or a combination of these two things. Number one is your face being open to your club path. What do I mean by that? Is your club face, being my palm here, is open to the direction that my club head is moving. So if my club head is moving out to in, it's moving to the left. If I'm a right-handed golfer, my club face is moving to the left, but the direction that it's pointing is to the right. My face is open to the direction my club head is moving. That's going to cause a slice. So if we understand that, then we can fix it. And that's assuming center face contact. That's what causes a slice. That's what brings us to the second piece that can cause a slice. And usually this doesn't cause a big slice. It either emphasizes what's already a slice, or it ends up just kind of being a low fade or something like that. But basically a heel strike. Now a heel strike can cause a slice because what ends up happening is the ball hits the face. So imagine the heel of my hand here being the heel of the club face. What happens is the ball will hit the face and the face will actually twist closed a little bit. So if I'm looking at it from this position, I'm coming in, the club's coming in, it strikes it on the heel, the face will actually close. And what happens is the ball will start a little bit more left than it normally would. And I'm talking about this in terms of a right-handed golfer. So if I'm going like that, now what happens is that when this ball is compressed, it's pancaked against the face, the ball will tend to want to roll toward the center of the face. So if you think my callus is here, on my hand as being the center of the face, my ball is going to want to roll toward that part of the face. And what does that do? That puts the slice spin on it. So if you come into contact with an open face and a path that's going out to in, and you hit it on the heel, that is slice city. That's going a mile to the right, most likely. Now, I can actually come in and hit the ball with a perfectly square face and on plane swing. not off plane, not into out or out to in at all. But if I hit it on the heel, it will usually start a little bit more left and then turn to the right. The other thing that can cause a huge slice is if you hit it extreme on the toe. So I'm talking like the very edge of the toe. When you hit it on the very edge of the toe, the face twist will twist open so much sometimes that no amount of gear effect can make up for how open this face is. And the ball will start to the right and slice way, way, way off to the right. So that's basically what can cause a slice. So you need to look at your strike location, see where you're hitting it on the face. Maybe I talked about my buddy earlier who struggles with toe strikes. Sometimes the toe strikes are pretty bad, and then sometimes they're really bad. When they're pretty bad, they're snap hooks to the left. When they are really bad, they're big push slices out to the right. So he needs to work on his face and path are actually fine as he's coming into the golf ball, but because he hits it so far off the toe, he has trouble with his ball flight. Once he started hitting the ball in the center of the face, the ball or just a little bit off the toe, the ball started going pretty straight. So that's essentially, and he was hitting it pure and really, really good. So that's essentially what you need to look at. Am I striking it? Where am I striking on the face? So use the dot method like I talked about earlier. Put the little dot on there. See where you're striking on the club face. If you're working with your driver, it's actually better to use foot powder spray because these dots, you can't really see them very well on driver faces because a lot of them are black. If you have a chrome driver face, then yes, absolutely. But a lot of them these days are using this black face, and you can't really see the dots on the really, really dark metal. So use the foot powder spray. And the foot powder spray will put like a little bit of a white film on the face, and that you'll be able to see exactly where you're striking it. So see what's going on there. That could be part of the issue. The other thing is getting your face and path worked out. So if you're opening your stance, then that's just making it more difficult for you. What's likely now, it may be making you to swing more into out because you're swinging out toward the target. That might be part of it, and that might be why you're hitting it straight. But typically, if you keep that same relationship and you shift to the basically shift to where your body's opened up, then what's going to happen is you're going to swing more out to in. And if you're trying to keep your face square to the target, you're just going to have your face way more open to the target, and you're going to hit a big old slice. But I don't think that's what's happening. Now, if you're closing your stance like this will make it easier to swing more into out, and you may end up starting to hit some draws. So but you're hitting it straight, you're saying. So basically, you're just not exaggerating or getting that path working into out enough. So the best way to fix your issue, if it's a face and path issue, is to exaggerate the opposite. So to learn to hit a hook. That's really what you want to do, is learn to hit a hook. And the best way to learn to hit a hook is to go through the stop slicing, the never slice again section on the course. That whole course is basically about how to teach you how to hit a hook. So that's what I'd recommend going and checking out, that never slice again course, as long as you see it's not a face strike issue as well. So check both of those things, see what's going on, and work through that never slice again course. That's going to get you to where you'll start actually hit a hook. Basically, you get to where you can hit a hook, and then you ease off of it to straighten it out. That's really where you want to get to. So to get to the course, click the house icon at the top of the page, scroll down on the page, and you'll see a list of all the courses. Click the Never Slice Again course, and you get started. All right, so Ed D says, after impact and the elbows, so it looks like he had something earlier, but then it cut off. Maybe it didn't. Okay. So hi Q, that was previous question. Your suggestion to open up and clear my chest and left side was great. Much more extension in the straight line release. I noticed that my hands appear behind my right thigh rather than in front of it at last parallel. Thoughts, move, tennis racket, help. So I noticed that my hands appear behind my right thigh, then in front, last parallel. Thoughts. Yeah, so probably the move. If you're coming in, and I think you're saying that your hands are more in this area, like not when you're at parallel, it's basically like that. So that means that you're losing your lag a little bit early. So first of all, see if you're generating lag. If you are casting from the get-go, you're basically, which means in the downswing, what we want to be doing is we want to be coming down and creating this angle between my arm and the shaft. So sharpening up that angle in the beginning of the downswing. If you're casting and that angle is getting bigger from the very beginning, you're going to end up in kind of this position right here. So I'm not to my trail thigh yet, but that club is parallel to the ground. Then I'm going to be kind of scooping a little bit through contact. So what you need to do is make sure that you're getting some lag. So that'd be the first piece. And then make sure that you're releasing that club out in front, which would be the straight line release course. So make sure you have lag first. If you don't have lag, you need to work through the top speed lag course. And if you are releasing that too early, then you need to work on the straight line release course or the move course, because part of the reason why you may be generating lag, so you're coming in, you're generating that lag, but if you're steep, if I'm like this, I'm going to stand up and I'm going to be releasing that club too early, because I got to get to the golf ball and square the face. So you may need to be working on the move as well. So look at those things in your swing. If you're coming down steep, then you want to work on the move course. If you are shallowing out the club, meaning if you look from down the line and you see this butt end of the club's pointing a little bit outside the golf ball, your hands are pretty much right in the middle of your chest here, or a little bit behind, and that club is pointing at or a little bit outside the golf ball, that means that you're pretty much on plane. You're pretty much shallowed out. You're in good shape. If that's the case, then you probably need to work on what's the second part of the move, which is squaring the face and the straight line release course. They're both kind of, there's going to be some overlap there. Essentially what you're doing, because with that pet the grass drill, that's what we're doing. We're coming in and we're petting the grass and releasing that out in front. So that's basically that second part of the move as you're coming through there. So you may want to work through those courses, but that's definitely what's going on. So lag first, make sure you have that. If you don't have it, go through the lag course. If you do have lag and you're releasing the club early, it's going to be straight line release and the move course, working through those drills. You can find all of those courses. If you click the house icon, that's going to take you to the home page. So at the top of the page, there's going to be a little tiny house. Click on that. That'll take you to the home page. Scroll down the home page. You'll see a list of all the courses. We have 20 plus courses on the website. Start working through the drills in that course, and the straight line release and the move course, if that is the case. The move, especially if you are coming down steep. All right, so Patrick C says, hey Q, one of my friends showed me a video on Instagram where the teach was promoting from the top of the backswing to throw the handle away from the target as the first move. It was interesting, as it certainly seemed to keep me from opening my shoulders too quick. Any thoughts on it, good or bad? Thanks. So I'm not going to be able to go in and look at that, but basically what was, it depends on what's going on. So if you're feeling like your hands are going out away from the target, that is a good feeling. But you don't want to feel like the club is going out away from the target. That's going to be a bad feeling. That's going to be casting, right? So if we feel like our hands, like basically from our wrist down, like that, basically like my watch is going out away from the target, that's going to help me to actually sharpen this angle and to get my hands wider as I'm coming through and to create more torque. That is a good feeling. What a lot of people may misconstrue what he's talking about, if it is what I think it is that you may be misconstruing this to be what he's talking about. So I don't know if he explains that in there. Like I said, I'm not going to be able to go in during the office hours and review the Instagram post or really open up links in general to anything. But if that is what's going on, then I would say that is a good tip. You do want to feel like that's what you're doing. In fact, we have a video on this. It's called the bow and arrow drill, where basically you feel like you have an arrow in a quiver on your back at the top of the swing, and you are pulling that quiver out from your back. So you can see I'm sharpening that angle, but my hand is getting further away as I'm starting down. It's actually called, I believe the video is called the world's best lag drill. So if it's something along those lines, I would say that is good. But if it's along the lines of casting, I couldn't imagine a single instructor worth their weight in anything would promote casting the club from the very start of the swing. Now, you do cast the club, but it ain't happening until out here, where everyone's casting. Pro players are casting, but it's not happening until right there. If you're casting up here, you're burning up everything, and then you're going to be scooping, releasing early. If you're starting to cast the club, from right here, then that's releasing that club out in front. You're casting the club out in front. That's what you want to be doing, and it can make it easier if you feel like the hands are kind of moving away from your chest as you're starting the downswing. But you want to make sure that you're creating that angle, creating some lag there, and that's going to be the best bet. All right. So Jim G says, in compression line 1.2, Clay says hips are open, 45 degrees at impact, but shoulders are not open at all. I thought shoulders were slightly open, but looked square. Can you explain and demonstrate? So yeah, Clay made that video before we really had data showing exactly what tour players are. Now, some tour players are square with their shoulders, and some players are slightly open. I've seen videos of Rory where he's very open with his shoulders. So the average tour player is actually about 10 to 12 degrees open. So average tour player with the hips is going to be at contact. So here I am, I'm coming into contact. It's going to be about 45 degrees open. So 40 to 50 degrees open is typically where they're going to be. You're not going to see a single tour player who has their hips square at contact. Not a single one. All of them are going to be open somewhat. And you might see some that are open 30 degrees, 25 degrees, but you're also going to see, for every one of those, you're going to see one that's open like 70 degrees. Look at Dustin Johnson. His hips are open like 70 degrees at contact. So the average, though, is somewhere between 40 and 50. So that's with the hips. Now, our chest, this is where people get confused, because our chest is not the same as the shoulders. The shoulders are not going to be pointing in the same way as the chest, because my shoulders can move independently of my chest. So my chest is right here. If you look from this angle here, I'm going to have my chest pointing completely forward. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to protract my lead shoulder, which means I'm going to move my shoulder blade away from my spine. That's protracting. And then my trail shoulder, I'm going to retract it, which is going to be moving my shoulder blade toward my spine. So you can see right there. Now, it looks like my shoulders are pointed way over there, but my chest is pointed straight forward that way. My chest has not changed where it's been pointing. So your average tour player, as they come into contact here, is going to have their chest open 20, 30 degrees. But if you look at from down the line, their shoulders are going to look fairly square to slightly open. 10 to 12 degrees is probably the average of the shoulder openness compared to the target line. Now, you'll see some that are square, and you'll see some that are a lot more open, but most are going to be in that 10 to 12 degree range. Now, when you're working on drills, when we say be square, it's just much simpler to think in terms of 45 degrees and 0 degrees, right? I think everyone can visualize 45 degrees because 45 degrees is half of 90, right? So it's easy to visualize, okay, my hips need to be 45 degrees open. The average tour, we measured tour players to see kind of how much their straight line release was. And I believe the average was like 40 degrees. We say 45 degrees on the website because it's much easier to conceptualize than 40 degrees. So I wouldn't take everything so literally. We're really just trying to get you to be in certain positions. You're going to be just fine if you're working on getting the hips open 45 degrees and the shoulders square. It's not going to ruin anything. So even though technically tour players are about 10 to 12 degrees open, that's pretty darn close to square, 10 to 12 degrees. If you imagine one minute on a clock is 6 degrees. So the amount that a tour player is open is basically 2 minutes on a clock. That's the angle there that they're open. So it's not very much. So understand that whenever you're working on these things, that it's not about getting it absolutely perfect. It's just a matter of getting it close to be in the positions. And as long as you're getting it in the wheelhouse, you're going to be in good shape. There's an acceptable range that you can be in. So square to slightly open is completely fine. But great question there. I know it can be confusing when you hear the shoulders should be open, but it's like they're not open. It's not like the shoulders are open 45 degrees. If they were, that'd be a completely different story. But we're talking 10, 12 degrees is where most tour players are, and it's really not that much. But really, the chest is really what's opening. That's what you want to feel like is opening. And the lead shoulder is protracted, which gives the appearance that the chest is square or slightly open when it's actually more open than it is. So that's really where people get off is that in that sense. All right, so Samuel B says, what difference, if any, on 10.5 driver set plus 2 versus buying 2.5 driver head as stock? It's probably not going to be much of a difference at all. I know with some brands or whatever it might be, it could open the face a little bit, but all you have to do, it may make the club set up a little bit more open if you add 12, if you do the hosel thing and add 2 degrees. What I'd recommend doing is find a driver that's as close to the optimum loft that you need and then adjust it as needed. Adding 2 degrees is you could probably just buy a 12 degree driver and just use that. But if all you have is a 10.5 degree driver, it's better than buying a new one. But it's not going to make that much of a difference. But I know that the technology may have come. I'm not a club expert or anything, but the technology may have come on a little bit to make it a little bit better. But I know it used to kind of make the face sit a little bit more open or closed if you were to take loft or add loft on. But I think they may have fixed that with the technology that's out now. But really not much of a difference for sure. So John L says, what is your opinion of the Orange Whip or other similar swing trainers? I can tell you I've honestly never used an Orange Whip before. So I don't really have an opinion on it. My opinion on training aids essentially is that's exactly what they are. They are just aids. If they help you, none of them are magic. They're going to make you swing better. I honestly don't really understand how the Orange Whip is helpful at all. But maybe, who knows? Maybe if I used one, I could see if it's worth anything. But I don't really see the merit in it. A golf club does not flex like that. So I don't understand how using a super flexy club is going to help you to feel lag or generate lag with a normal golf club. Because it's not going to have the same feel, as a club, as an actual club. You know what I mean? So if you want my opinion, the best training aids out there are the ones that actually require you to make the change. And so that would be like a swing speed radar that requires you to make changes to make those club head speed go up. A video camera, it requires you to make the changes to get in the positions. And then the next training aids would be ones that help you kind of during the fact, help you understand the positions that you're in and give you some instant feedback. Those can be a little bit of a time saver. So those would be training aids like the Impact Snap, for instance, the Hanger training aid, things like that. They can kind of help you. The Orange Whip might fall into that category, but I think the Orange Whip is probably more in the third category, which would be completely worthless training aids. But again, I'm not going to form an absolute opinion on the Orange Whip until I've actually used it. And I just haven't used it. And I don't see any reason to use it. But the absolute worthless training aids are the ones that force you to be in the position. They don't actually let you learn to be in it. So one of those training aids that would be absolutely worthless, in my opinion, would be like the Swing Jacket. Have you seen that one where it's like it's basically this shirt that you put on and you put your arms through one sleeve in it, and it's supposed to keep your arms together? It's forcing you to keep your arms together. The moment you take that off, you're just going to go right back to what you were doing before. It doesn't really teach you anything. Whereas if you were focusing on trying to not break down your arms and get rid of these angles, if you were to just look on camera and see that what you're doing and then adjust your feel based on what you're seeing there. So if you look on camera, you feel like you're doing this, and you look on camera and you're doing that, you realize, okay, well, I really need to force myself to keep my lead arm straight here as I'm going back. I really need to force myself to hold my angles and really, really focus on that. That actually teaches you and makes you learn how to do it. That's how you get better faster. It's a lot of the reason why training aids sell is because it seems like it's a magic pill. That swing shirt thing, it seems like it's a magic pill that's going to help me learn faster, but it doesn't at all. It actually does the opposite. You're going to spend a lot of time using it, and you're not going to learn anything. So things like that are going to help with that. So the orange whip thing, the way I look at it, the way I see it, I would imagine you may start swinging it, and you might feel that club kind of lagging behind you, but then when you grab a real club, a normal club, you're just going to go right back to what you were doing before, what feels comfortable for you. So it's not a magic pill that's going to help you to magically start training lag. You need to look on video, work through the Top Speed Golf system, work through the feelings, force your actual body to do it. None of the Top Speed Golf system requires you. There's no requirement to have any training aids. It's all you learning how to do it by looking on video. That's really the most effective way. It's not the easiest way. Or actually, I shouldn't say it is the easiest way in the sense that it's the most effective way, because everything else is going to be more of a waste of time as far as the amount of time and effort you're going to put into it. So hopefully that makes sense. But whenever you're looking at training aids, always think, okay, is this the most effective training aid? Is it going to help me? Is it going to actually make me learn what the positions that I need to be in? Is it going to give me feedback kind of during the swing? Or is it going to force me like a robot holding my arms and making me move to be in the positions? If that is the case, then it's really worthless. All right, so Peter W says, James Q, and we got, we're over the time here, so these are the last questions. But James Q says, you say to bow the wrist on the way down. What if I bow at the top and maintain that throughout? You can do that as long as you maintain it throughout. I see people all the time who do this, who basically they kind of DJ it, right? So Dustin Johnson, he's bowing that wrist at the top. Well, what happens is they get in this position, and then in the downswing, they lose it. They just do that. In the downswing, they do what they're comfortable with. I see it all the time. So yes, you can absolutely do it just like Dustin Johnson, John Ram, Daniel Berger, like all them guys do it. They're closing the face as they're bringing it up. But what they do is they maintain that in the downswing. That's the key. You have to maintain it. I have found that typically when you try, it takes a lot of dexterity and flexibility in the wrist to be able to do that effectively. So if you're one of those people, then great. Then and it works for you, then absolutely. But I think most people aren't. Most people are going to get much better results from having this wrist nice and flat at the top, and then that's a pretty natural position to be in. And then the downswing, we get that bowing a little bit in the downswing. So look at Brooks Koepka. He's got his wrist slightly bowed at the top, and then he really bows it as he's coming down. That's what most tour players are doing, is they're nice and flat at the top, and then as they're coming down, they get a little bit of that bow in there to square that face earlier. That's what I recommend doing. I think that's the easiest, because when you go up here like this, the natural inclination in the downswing is just to undo it in the downswing. And even Dustin Johnson, when he's so bowed up here at the top, that as he's coming down, he actually loses a little bit as he's coming into contact. Because if he was actually like this at contact, he would have to have this much forward shaft lean to square the face, or he would, if he didn't have that much forward shaft lean, that face would just be slammed shut. So if you watch here, if I bow here, if I have my normal grip here, and now I'm just going to bow that wrist as much as possible. Now I'm coming into contact, and I have some forward shaft lean, a normal amount of forward shaft lean. But if I have all this bow in my wrist, look at my club face, it's still slammed shut. So there can be a little bit of that releasing, but what I find most of the time is most people just completely undo it in the downswing. So that's really the big deal there, is make sure that you're completely undoing it. Another thing that I often see is that they when they're getting in that position, they have trouble getting some lag in the downswing because they'll want to do this with their trail wrist. They'll want to kind of push out. So you really want to focus on both wrists, making that happen, getting this wrist, making sure that your trail wrist is getting in that thumbs up position and bent back position at the top, almost like I'm a waiter here. So if you have it to where it's like that, where I'm not in my thumbs up position and pointing up to the sky, then you're going to be doing, you might be bowing the wrist, but you're going to have that club kind of like in this position right there. And that's going to be casting the club. So in order to get to where you have lag, you want to make sure that you got this in that thumbs up position as well as you're going up to the top. That's going to allow you to create that sharp angle there. So watch those things whenever you do that. But yes, absolutely, you can do it that way. If that works for you and that allows you to get into the position, then absolutely do it that way. Results are going to speak for themselves, right? So if you're going out there, you're getting that club, you're coming into impact, and you have a great impact position, because that's really the thing that matters the most is impact. There's nothing else that matters. So as long as you're getting into that impact position, then that is the right thing to do. As long as you're getting into that square club face and de-lofted club face, which is why you'd want to do the move in the first place, that's going to speak for itself for sure. All right. So last question here. Peter W. says, hi, Q. Clay teaches putting using an arc stroke. Can you explain that stroke also on putters? I see there is straight and slight arc type of putters. How do you differ in how you swing the putter? I would say I have more of a slight arc to a stroke. So basically, pretty much the further you stand away from the ball, the more arc you're going to have in your stroke. Because really, the putter is rotating around your body, right? So it's going up, and then it's going back that way. So the only way to really have a straight back and straight through stroke is if you manipulate the club coming back. You have to manipulate it to make that happen. So essentially, all strokes are slight or arc putting strokes. The best putters out there are typically slight arc putters where they have their eyes just inside the golf ball or right on the golf ball. If you're someone who has your eyes way out here, that's about the only way you can do a straight back and straight through putting stroke, but there's really no good putters that really do that. Have your eyes slightly inside the ball. If you feel more comfortable with the ball further away from you, I think it's a little less consistent to do that. But if you putt better doing that, then by all means, do it that way. Again, just like the last question, results are going to speak for themselves, but pretty much all strokes are going to be a slight arc stroke. So keep that in mind whenever you're working on these things. All right, so thanks everybody for joining me. We'll be back here tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern time. Thanks.